Hi everyone, thanks for tuning into the Radults podcast, the podcast that highlights the stories of people who said fuck that to the idea that growing up means giving up on your dreams, and instead turn those dreams into their reality. Today's guest is USA Today best-selling author of dark fantasy, sci-fi and horror books, Russell Nohelty. Russell makes cool things, and plenty of them. He's a writer, a speaker, a publisher. He's written graphic novels, articles, and all sorts of other things. He's even got a podcast, and has started his own series of educational and inspirational courses for creatives called The Complete Creative. Russell is a certified Radult with a world of advice to offer young creatives. Welcome to Radults. Russell, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we always like to have our guests introduce themselves to our listeners because not everyone's quite as geeky as us. So please tell us who you are and what do you do?
Sure. So my name is Russell Nohelty. I'm a USA Today best-selling author, speaker, and comic book creator. I run a company called Wannabe Press, which does it did the Cthulhu is Hard to Spell book that Mike was in last year. And it does my books, Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter, Katrina Hates Dead shit, Pixie Dust, and a whole bunch of my novels. I've written over a dozen novels that are coming out over the next year or so. So mostly do stuff related to publishing, but I do also book marketing for other authors. And I have a website called The Complete Creative, which helps creatives build a better business.
It sounds like you don't have a whole lot of free time in your life at all.
Well, I made my life so that the things that I love are the things that I do, which has their own drawbacks. But, you know, I really love doing marketing stuff for other people and myself. And I really love writing. And my first love is comics and anthologies and networking with other awesome creators. So basically, all the things that I love, I now do for a job, which puts a lot of pressure on life in general. But as far as a day goes, basically everything that I do for a job now is everything that I loved when I was younger. So it works out.
Do you find that you still love the things that you love just as much now that you're doing that as a career?
Oh, God, no. I love it more, actually, because now I see the nitty gritty of it. I love and hate it more. So I should say, like, I have a very love-hate relationship with my own writing and my own creating, especially novels, which is all me. There's none of the art that I get with comics. And it's a lot more pressure. You know, you're not doing it just for the fun of it anymore. You're doing it because you have to pay bills. And I was just having a conversation with somebody this morning about how far in the hole we are right now on our novel lineup. And she's like, the money's not everything. And I was like, no, it is everything. Like, my mortgage is due whether these books do well or not. So in that way, it's quite a bit of pressure. But on the other side, you know, I was at Emerald City Comic Con this year, and Eddie Headington, who's one of the other creators in the Cthulhu book, was with me. And we sold maybe 50 copies of that book while we were there. And he's like, wow, all of these people are going to read something that I wrote. And I looked at him, and I'm old and jaded and bitter now, and I've been doing this for a while. I was just like, yeah, I feel that way all the time. Like, because everybody, like so many thousands of people read my work every year on one hand, it's wonderful because so many people, I'm so much better known now than I was before. But on the other hand, it does take that sort of wonder away for any one sale or any one person reading it, because it happens so much. And so hearing him say that was quite a bit eye-opening for me because, you know, that's a feeling I haven't gotten in a long time. I still get that feeling when people, you know, review my work or tell me how much they like my stuff for a moment. But that selling a book or having one more person read it, it just over time, you can't get as excited about each sale because there are just so many more of them. Unlike at the beginning where like every sale was magic.
Yeah, absolutely. I've found that with selling my stuff, I love and hate repeat customers. I love them because obviously they show the loyalty and dedication, like the stuff that I put out. But then the hate side of it comes from, but I'm selling to the same people. Like, that's not growth if that repeat customer comes back.
Oh, I don't know about that. That is the growth. You know, if you don't have the base of people there, you don't have a career. If you always are selling to the exact same people, you like if you're not selling to those people again, then it means you're doing something absolutely wrong, because you know, it's the people that come back and say that they've loved your work over and over again that makes you believe that you're doing something right. Because it's very easy with trickery to you know, a great cover, good art, an interesting cover to like sell to something one time. Like there's skill in there, but like the skill is having them take it, read it, and then come back and buy again. If you're not getting those people, then you have a real big problem, because you can never grow unless you're adding those people to the pool of people who are going to buy on autopilot from you. I mean, I wish. Like, nothing is more fun than having the person come back and say that they loved it. So I disagree with that statement. If I could only sell to people who were buying who had bought from me before, life would be a whole lot easier, because you wouldn't have to have that initial conversation every time.
That's good. I've not thought about it like that, but you definitely make a very valid point.
I mean, those are the people that buy the Kickstarters, and that you can rely on at the shows to come back. You know, the reason I go to the shows often is not to find the new customers, it's to connect again with the repeating customers, because the more often you can be in those people's heads, the more often they're going to buy from you, but the more likely they are to tell somebody else about you. And the minute that you can get the word of mouth referrals to go, you know, that is the gift that keeps on giving, because when somebody else is dragging someone else to their table or telling someone they have to read your work, that is when the job starts getting a whole lot easier, because now it's not me telling them that something's good. It's their friend or their loved one or another comic creator. And that makes the job 1,000 times easier than when I first started and I was begging people to just give me a shot and nobody knew who I was.
Right, you've made some really fascinating points there, and there was a beautiful opportunity for us to segue into speaking about Kickstarter campaigns, and specifically the one that you've got starting just now. Can you tell us what your current Kickstarter campaign is focused on and what you're hoping to achieve?
Sure. Well, I actually think that is a great segue, because Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter, the book that we're bringing to Kickstarter, is only coming back to Kickstarter because fans have begged me to do more of it for years. I finally acquiesced, mostly because I finally figured out how to get Ichabod out of the pickle that he was in the end of the last the last trade. But I've been hesitant to do more of my most beloved book, Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter, and now it's launched on Kickstarter, and I'm very happy that people are going to be able to see more issues. So Ichabod Jones is about a psychopath that escapes a mental asylum and becomes a monster hunter and a hero of the apocalypse, but he doesn't know if he's killing monsters, humans, or it's all in his head the whole time. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings, if H.P. Lovecraft wrote it with a sense of humor. You know, I love Lovecraft, but he has no funny bone in his whole body. So it's a quite funny look at the apocalypse, but it's also full of brutality and gore and high stakes. And it's basically about this psychopath kid, very scared, nervous, squirrely, unsure of himself, who has to become a hero and save the world in the only place that he can become a hero, which is in this place where the most horrible things imaginable have taken hold.
That sounds honestly metal as hell, and something that I'm definitely interested in reading, and I'm pretty sure you're going to have no issues with your Kickstarter. But say you were talking to somebody who was completely unfamiliar with your work, and you had the space between levels in a lift, so about 5 seconds. What would be your sentence-long pitch to them to get them to support you?
It's about a psychopath that escapes a mental asylum and becomes a monster hunter, but doesn't know if he's killing monsters, humans, or it's all in his head the whole time. It's a complete psychological mind screw.
Brilliant. That's definitely going to get me buying if I'm the guy in the lift. Now, I'm also very curious about the creative process that went into picking up this title after such a long time. Did you find it hard to step back into that world as the creative, or did you find it quite a natural thing to be revisiting your old faith?
Well, it was very hard. I wrote Ichabod at the lowest point in my whole life. I had moved to LA a couple of years before. When I did, I was in a neck brace. I had been trying to start something for years. I moved to be a movie and TV writer, and nobody was hiring me. I had a movie that was in post-production starting in 2017, and it wouldn't come out till 2013, so it was in the middle of editing at this point. And it would still be 5 more years by the time I would finally see it, and then it wasn't that good when it actually came out. So I like to say it's the most mediocre movie in the history of movies. If you put a movie on a scale of 0 to 100, it would be the exact 50, right in the median. But it was really bad. Nobody was hiring me. I couldn't even get a job at so there's a company called Aflac, which is like a door-to-door insurance salesman kind of, but it doesn't sell insurance. They sell this other thing called supplemental insurance, which I'm not going to get into. It's basically disability insurance and a whole bunch of other things. And I couldn't get a job there without getting more schooling. So I was in an incredibly low point. And in this low point, I made a book called The Wannabes, which is about fake superheroes that get real superpowers. It's like all ages superheroes. And I brought it to San Diego Comic-Con in 2010. And I was like, this is it. I've scraped up just enough money to do 8 pages of this book. And, we were tens of thousands of dollars in debt at this point. But I brought it there and I was like, this is the one. And every single person that I talked to laughed me out of the room. Some of them were nice enough to say, why would we do superheroes when Marvel and DC do superheroes? But most of them didn't even give me a reason. They just gave me a flat out no. And so I was pretty despondent. I'd spent $2,000-$3,000 to get down to San Diego, get all the stuff and stay there. I was trying to network with all these people and just nobody was giving me the time of day. So I came home and I was absolutely broken. And I was like, well, can a human who is I was obviously cast off from society, nobody wanted anything to do with me, or at least that's what I believed at the time. And I didn't know what was wrong with me, but I said, I'm going to make one last stab at it, and I'm going to make the most unlikely hero imaginable. And I didn't know who that was yet, but then I was cresting over the 405 a couple months after I got home from San Diego. The 405 is the major freeway in Los Angeles. It takes you through Santa Monica and the west side of the city, and it ends and one of the main things is it goes up this big hill, and when you crest over it, you see all of the San Fernando Valley underneath, all of it for miles. And I just remember cresting over it and having this idea for this psychopath that was told he was a hero, and he believed that he was a hero, and he was completely wrong. And he gets put into a mental asylum and just absolutely, completely a broken, cast off from society, objectively an evil person in the eyes of society. And whether that person could become a hero was very interesting to me. And, now, I promise you, I haven't answered the question. But now it was very hard for me one of the reasons I didn't want to go back into that world is it was very hard for me. It was the darkest place I've ever been in my whole life. I made a couple of novels during that time too, but this was by far the darkest I've ever been. And we're developing the show for television right now. And we had to figure out how to keep it going and have it not be the most nihilistic thing ever. And So in doing that, we found the kernel of the story was really about hope, and the fact that this person who was so broken becomes a hero not in spite of the things that made him broken, but because of the things that made him broken. Like it is the fact that he is like he is cut off from reality, and that he's already dealt with all of these monsters. He's been seeing monsters for years, and that like he already has voices talking to him in his head. All of those things make him able to be a hero in this horrific apocalypse where there are monsters everywhere. And he's probably one of the only people in the whole world that can actually save everybody. And again, it's because of his brokenness, not in spite of it. And so looking back at the story, it's sort of 36-year-old Russell telling 26-year-old Russell that like it's going to be okay, and the things that you thought were your failings are actually your biggest strengths. And so it was very hard for me to look at it for a long time, but in the last year or so, I've seen it in a much different light as we've been doing this development process. And it's almost like me calling out to the past and saying, hey, it's going to be okay. So I don't know, maybe 46-year-old Russell will tell 36-year-old Russell it wasn't okay, but 36-year-old Russell's talking to 26-year-old Russell is very interesting. I worry that it's too hopeful now, but I'm hoping that people will join me on the journey, because I think that it's a universal idea to feel like broken and outcast, and that you'll never be any good. And what I want at the end of this day is to show people that, you know, those feelings are normal, but it is exactly what makes you think you're no good that makes you special and will lead you to succeed in the end.
That was a long answer, but it was an incredible answer. And I think there's some very valuable stuff in there for other creatives, because that's definitely a place that we all go to. Anyone who's ever created anything starts out in that headspace that, you know, they're outcast, that no one's going to want what they're doing, that they're stupid, why would they try, etc., etc. And hearing stories like yours is an incredibly empowering thing for anyone that finds himself in that situation. And hopefully people can find that element of hope in the book, and that your Kickstarter can lead them to be able to run their own.
I mean, that's how Ichabod was the first book I ever did on Kickstarter. So we actually started it exactly 5 years after the first campaign launched. And Ichabod, in his sort of weird story, took 5 years to find an audience. I'd have been stupid to continue it back in 2014 because it just didn't sell very well. It was our worst selling book, or one of our worst selling books back when we first launched Wannabe Press. Our book, Katrina Hates Dead Shit, was vastly more popular. It wasn't until 2017 where it started to find its voice. And it wasn't until doing almost 100 shows and taking it on the road that people started to talk to me about it and started to identify with it. And I don't know what I still don't know exactly what it is about Ichabod, because I think that it is not my strongest piece of writing, but there is something about it that connects with people. I've written a lot of stuff and nobody talks to me about my books the way they talk about Ichabod. And so it's not just a testament in stick-to-itiveness, because we went back to it, but also the book itself is just all of the warts that I see in that book from it being my first book became the things that people love about it. And it went from my least popular book to now it's probably not my most popular book, but it hangs in there, and it's by far my most beloved book, and Ichabod is my most beloved character of anything I've ever created.
No, right on. I was wondering though, like, you've spoken about the difficulties that you've gone through, throughout your career, all the no's that you've got, as you progress through this. Do you, or did you ever have like a fail safe for if it didn't pan out, or is there a safety net in place?
You mean now or back in the day?
Either or.
So back in the day, I was a sales manager at a Sprint dealership. So I am very good at sales. So my fail-safe is at any point I could go and make probably 100 to 200 grand as working in sales somewhere, anywhere, if I don't care about the widget. I mean, I would make way more than on these books. Like, I do very, very well on these books, but I would do way better if I was selling just some random, I don't know, phone widget or something. So I also have a website called The Complete Creative and do the book marketing, which is sort of my other fail-safe right now. But the books themselves become a fail-safe because once they're done and you've paid them off, you can just keep touring with them for as long as it takes to like make money. The first time I left my job a month after Ichabod, a pallet of Ichabod books came. So I ordered 1,000 books. Those books came, and like a month later, I was out of a job. So I was literally touring with the book to keep a roof over my head. And it just so happened that I had like 900 books left, and that 900 books led to me being able to do another book and another book and another book. And I mean, now I have a process to find what books work. So it's a process that I've developed over the years that has not let me down yet. You know, the iteration from our monster anthology to the Cthulhu book and all of the other graphic novels and things that we've put out has all been sort of triangulating an audience for us and for me, so that I can pretty confidently say that a Cthulhu book, the Cthulhu is Hard to Spell anthology, will continue to sell, that the Ichabod books will continue to sell, because the failsafe is like the audience itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So at one point, our mailing list was up to 75,000 people, and we've cut it down to about 11,000 people who actually open and read our books. You know, over 2,300 people have unique people have backed our Kickstarter campaigns over the years that we've done it. And I'm pretty confident that we make incredible books. And so my hope is that itself, like the audience and the buyers, are the fail safe and the books that we've already made.
Now, I'm actually really curious because you're incredibly good at running these successful Kickstarter campaigns. Without giving away all of the trade secrets, because you need to maintain your competitive advantage, how did you get to this point of success with crowdfunding? Is there any particular strategies you use each time, or any wisdom you can share with people freely?
I mean, I actually built courses and built the Complete Creative around answering all these questions and giving it away. So I actually have a free Kickstarter course which takes you through the basics of this system, and then a couple of other courses that talk about this. But I mean, the major thing is the audience, having the people primed and ready to go. And the more people that you have back, the more you can engage with those people and then get them to back a second time. You know, it's all about two things. It's all about the product and the audience. And if you have product audience fit, then you're going to do very well. And so at the beginning, I spent a lot of time screwing up. You know, Ichabod was raised $5,500, and then Katrina raised $8,700. Pretty sure that's correct. And that was one book iterating on the next book, but I didn't really know what I was doing back then. I just knew that those two books worked. Well, they were both dark fantasy, mythology, funny fantasy books. And then we did a mystery novel. And then we did a children's book about farting. And then we did a book called Spaceship Broken, which was a sci-fi novel about broken families. And through those 3 books, our next Kickstarter did 34, and then 22, and then 18. And, you know, you can't make a career if you keep going down. Your job is to keep going up in how many people you have reading your work. So about the time we finished the My Father Didn't Kill Himself campaign, I started asking people, like, what the heck, man? Why didn't you back this other one? And they're like, I don't care about novels. I care about comics. I don't care about mystery. I care about monsters and fantasy. And then we did the next, and then that sort of got me into doing the monster anthology, the Monsters and Other Scary Shit anthology. And then I started asking people who their favorite cover artist was, what their favorite thing about monsters was, who their favorite indie creators are. And I started to build out who my perfect audience would be, which is people who like the same things that the people who've already bought my stuff like. So there's a reason that our mascot has a huge Invader Zim vibe to it, because that's the number one, because Jonan Vasquez's work was a huge influence on Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter. That became sort of the calling card for everything that we did. So our mascot, Melissa, looks like Invader Zim. And the next book that we did, the Monsters and Other Scary Shit book, we hired Aaron Alexovich, who draws character designs for Invader Zim. And we did a book called Pixie Dust, which had a very animated movie feel. And then once we did that, once we did the Monster Anthology, we asked people what they liked about that and what they didn't like about that. And then we did the Cthulhu book, and that was the big, huge breakout book, because now everyone in our audience said that they liked Lovecraft. And that's one of the reasons that Ichabod came back, because the Ichabod Jones book resonates with the people who like the Cthulhu book. They almost go hand in hand. Every person who likes that Lovecraft book looks at the Ichabod book, but it all started with a small audience, and then iterating on what they liked about what we did and what I did, and then slowly building, and then failing quite a bit, and then figuring it all out. And then, after that Monsters and Other Scary Shit campaign, after My Father Didn't Kill Himself campaign, when I knew what was coming down the pipe, I knew that we were going to have a horrible year. Like, I knew it, because nobody liked the thing that we were doing. Like, it was such a small overlap that I knew it wasn't going to go well. But I knew that if I could do the Monster Anthology right, then I could have a good 2017. And that year, the 2016, we did $54,000 of business. The next year, we did $125,000 of business, just from having an audience, asking what they wanted, and then as we were doing that, growing that same fan base. Because once we had that fan base, we knew who we were targeting. So now it was going out and finding more people like them, and then showing them the stuff that we did, and then getting them and bringing them into how we worked. And then everything became quite streamlined in that process, because we had people, they were telling us, they were buyers, they were telling us what they wanted, and then we would give that to them, and then they would buy it. The only time that we've not been able to replicate that is when we've been trying to break into other markets. So we're trying to break into novels now, and not through Kickstarter, but through Amazon. And it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare in comparison, because it is so anti what people have said they wanted from us. Even though people have said they wanted more Katrina novels, and that is what we brought them, they still didn't want novels. They wanted comics. But I am also a novelist, so I am very adamant on getting people to treat me as a novelist, not only as a comic creator. And so it's been a tough road to hoe, getting people to like the novels. But on the other hand, I knew that it was not core brand. And once you have a core brand that can deliver a certain amount of money every month or every year, that's when you can expand it, make more products, push the outer limits of what the brand is, and then launch your Kickstarter. I know you said specifically Kickstarter, but this works anywhere. Is you find humans, you ask that want to buy from you, not just humans that are fans of yours, humans that actually buy from you. That is a very important part, which is why a Kickstarter is good even if you only have 10 fans, because at least those 10 fans are buying. Most people don't buy, they just have opinions. So once you have buyers, then you can grow with those buyers. And once you know really well who those buyers are and what they like, it becomes very easy to make things for those people and find more people like them. So that is my secret. I have buyers and I ask them every single time. In fact, I just sent a big email out 2 weeks ago asking people what they to look at the Kickstarter campaign. So people on my email list to look at the Kickstarter campaign and tell me what I could do better. And so they gave me all sorts of suggestions, things I could cut, things I should add, things that they liked, things they didn't like. That I had to re-record the video. I had to change a ton of copy. Like, it was a ton of work. But in the end, those people are buyers, and I want them to have and if they have if they look at the page and it's flawless, then that means everybody who looks at that page who was in the same audience as the people who already buy are going to be buyers too. And it just so happened, or likely to be buyers too, or at least sign up to get a free issue of Ichabod or hit a reminder or something like that. But without those buyers, without the audience, you got nothing. There's no way to grow. Because you're making guesses, and I hate making guesses. I like data, and then to make intuitive leaps from that data about what people want, because they will tell you what they want, but it's not really what they want all of the time. So you have to get very good at sussing out what they say and then what they mean. But you do that by asking questions and then trying things and seeing where they actually follow you and seeing where they start talking to other people. Because that was one of the great things about the Cthulhu campaign. Yes, it is Lovecraft, so it went bananas just because of Lovecraft. But it also had tons of people talking about it. Because even though Monsters and Other Scary Shit wasn't our strongest book, once it was out, I asked people what they wanted, what they liked and didn't like about it, so they felt like they were part of the process.
You know, definitely. I like that about the fact that you're willing to take that risk in, I guess, showing some sort of like transparency, like showing your cards and everything like that for the sake of, I guess, bettering what the product that you're about to offer. So, I mean, I have to commend that.
Well, I mean, I'm not that smart. I just I don't like taking tons of risk. It may seem like I like taking tons of risks because my career seems like it's built on tons of risks, but it's not necessarily fun for me. What's fun for me is making something for somebody and then having them like it. And then me being able to take that money and pay for rent and food and other sustenance. But I think that my transparency came from one of the reasons because Kickstarter is just very transparent, but also because being transparent made the product better. It made people care more about it. It made people care more about me. And if someone cares about me, then they will care more about the things that I offer. And then they will make a connection with me. And then those connections are way more important than the book. I always like to say that, money is the ancillary byproduct of doing business the right way. And so the money has always come because I am transparent and because I treat everybody more than a $20 bill and because I very much care about what everybody says. And I try as best that I can to deliver what people want. It is not always what people want. Sometimes it's what they need, not what they want. But that by taking in the input, I'm taking in things that make me stronger as a creator and stronger as a cultural influence and stronger as a part of this ecosystem that is comics and literature as a whole.
No, very valuable points there. Now to get a little bit silly, have a little bit of fun, we like to do a segment called RadBreak. It's pretty much almost like a game show sort of thing. We ask you a question, you answer it to the best of your ability while having some fun with it. So for this RadBreak, what I want you to do is choose a title of yours best suited for each of the following, and you're not allowed to double up. So I'm not going to give you the options. So I mean, if you, let's just say you turn around and you say Ichabod for one of the options, and then the next one is better suited for it, you can't use it. So there's a little bit of a risk with it. So I'll start with the first one, which is, which one of your titles would be best for a feature film?
So I have a book called Invasion, which is basically a big summer blockbuster movie. It's about a boy who meets a girl in Vegas, finds out she's an alien and that a big alien invasion is coming and they have to save the world. I literally wrote it to be a feature film. Not to be a feature film, but to feel like a big summer blockbuster feature film. So that's the one that I think will be the best feature.
Yeah, awesome. So the next one is ongoing television series. So like multi-season, let's say, 8 to 10 seasons worth. What would be your choice?
Well, we're developing Ichabod for television, so I'm going to have to say Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter. I think it can go 20 seasons.
Well, I'd like to see that happen. All right, so we got two more. Mini-series, so kind of like the kind that you find on Netflix.
Oh, this is really hard because I'm going to say the one that is best suited given the budgetary constraints for a miniseries. Not the one I necessarily... I wrote one book to be more like a miniseries, but I think Katrina Hates the Dead, the first 2 issues of Katrina Hates the Dead or Katrina Hates Dead shit would make a very good miniseries. It's about a girl. It's about a girl who is living in the apocalypse, finds out, and her friend gets sick, and she has to travel to the doctor to basically save his life. It's very miniseries-esque. It does get a little broader in issue 3, 4, and 5. But I mean, who doesn't like an apocalyptic journey?
Absolutely. And the very last one, animated series.
Oh, well, I'm going to say Pixie Dust for that one, since it was made to be read like an animated movie. So Pixie Dust is about a pixie who comes back from the dead to seek revenge on the king that killed her. It's done in an animated movie style. And I think that there's tons of opportunity for an animated series to be around Pixie Dust.
Nice.
I personally really look forward to this suite of creative interpretations of your work that's going to happen. The the scope for them is incredible, and I actually hope some of this stuff happens because it'd be really fucking cool.
I do too. I mean, I live in Los Angeles, so I live in the right place. Katrina and Pixie Dust both happen in a place called the Godsverse, which has 12 novels. So there's even more novels that aren't. I kept it to things that are out, but there's also novels and all sorts of stuff that connect that world together, and it travels from Pixie Dust time all the way to 10,000 years after Katrina's time. And we haven't even talked about novels yet, but that's the big crux of the novels, is that there's 4 big collections that collect 12 total stories set in the Godsverse.
That's an otherworldly amount of creative energy you have, and I think touching on the novels was exactly what we were going to do next. So Novels are another thing that you write. What's the biggest difference between writing a novel and writing a comic book? Do you find one more difficult than the other?
I think that it's harder to put yourself out there in a novel than a comic book. I think that it's harder to be so alone because you're writing the whole thing. You don't have a collaborator to keep pushing you along. I think one of the beauties of novels, though, is that it's so personal. The experience is different in every person's head. Every person will interpret it differently. With a comic book, you have words and pictures, so the characterization of the humans who are in the book, or all of the characters, is right there on the page. But with a novel, I could write 3 sentences of a description, and that could be taken by every single person that reads it in a completely different way. In the same way, though, you have no safety net with novels. If somebody doesn't like a comic book, you can be like, well, they didn't like the style, maybe, or like maybe it's a little too gory. But if they don't like the novel, you have only yourself to blame.
Do you find that you have more enjoyment writing one over the other, or?
Well, I'm an extrovert, so I like collaborating with people. I mean, comics are my first love. I guess I liked movies and such when I was growing up, but like I've never been in love with something the way I have with making comics. It's just a pure expression of creativity in a way that I don't even think novels are, because novels, there's a lot of suffering to get from one plot point to another plot point. But with comics, it's just you're putting out the panels. All you have to do is write 20 to 26 pages every issue, and then someone else is interpreting it. It's just, and then that interpretation, there's this moment when you get the pencils back and somebody has interpreted your work, and it's so much better than what you imagined in your head, and so much different than what you imagined in your head, and they made it their own thing. Obviously with your influence, but there's a moment when you see it all together that I have never experienced in any other form of media ever. And I've done a lot. I've done movies, I've done television, I've done novels. And in every part, you're so into the process that the iterations don't change that much. But even when you hire an actor and you hear them talk, like you're hiring them based on like they're doing your own dialogue to you. So it's not even, it's getting that finished page back. There's just a moment when you open it that like it's still to this day is like jaw-dropping to me. That first moment where you're looking at it and you're like, oh my God, this is so good. Oh my, this is like a thing. This is a thing that is actually real now. And though as a writer, I do love novels also. God, it's just so hard to get over that love of that, like that momentary and that like that immediacy of somebody connecting with your work. Because that's another thing that doesn't happen with novels. Novels are a slow burn. Comics, there's like this immediate connection someone can make to the work that I don't get in novels. I think the connection is deeper in novels when you've moved someone in a novel, but that immediate like, oh my God, this is great. It doesn't happen in novels in the way that it happens in comics.
Absolutely, and I agree completely. There's something special about waking up to a new email in your inbox and it's pages for something that you've written, and you get like seeing it for the first time, like since you wrote the script.
Absolutely. I mean, I love seeing what an editor can do with my work as a writer, but like it's really at max going to be a 10% change differential from like what you put out, and that's if like they like chop your whole story up. It's probably going to be 95 to 99% what you wrote. maybe just tweaked a little bit. But with comics, it's I don't know, it's like magic. It's like magic.
Let's say one of our listeners were looking to get into writing. What piece of advice, or you can have a few if you need, would you give them starting out? What would Russell's tips for being a Radult be?
Well, I mean, I did write the book on building a creative career, and the first section of my book, How to Build a Creative, Sell Your Soul, How to Build a Creative Career, or when it gets relaunched, How to Build a Creator Career, is all about making good stuff. But the most important thing is that you suck. You're a miserable writer. It's just not even fair how bad you are. But Ira Glass has this quote where the distillation of it is like, you suck, but your taste is really good. So like the entire creative process is you continuing to iterate on the process until you suck less. But it's a brutal, brutal, brutal thing because you are god awful. You're just the worst writer. And the good news is every single writer at some point has been the worst writer in the world. It may have been the moment that they were born, but everybody has faced that. And the good news is that you've consumed so much media in your life that your taste is good. Like, you know what good is, you just can't get there. The problem is that you'll never get there if you can't finish things. So you got to write and finish and then iterate and improve and keep doing it. And it's going to take 10 or so things that you make to completion. I mean, like, you have to write it and then edit it and then edit it and edit it and edit it until it's as good as it can be, as good as you can make it. And then once you understand that you suck and you keep finishing things, you'll get incrementally better. You can take courses to get significantly better than that as well. But you should only take courses with a grain of salt, and pull as much from them as is worthwhile for you, especially when you first start, because you're going to take courses. I know I have a writing course, and if you take it, your tendency is to do literally exactly what they say. And it's not going to feel right to you because only 20% of it fits your writing style. So you need to keep improving, keep pulling things, keep reading books, keep watching movies, because movies are the best distillation of the 3-act structure that we have to watch, like, quickly. Television as well. Watch the best things, watch the worst things. But you have to make stuff, a lot of stuff. I make a lot of stuff now, but I have always made a lot of things. Always. Since I started doing it in earnest in 2006. That's 13 years where I've never completed less than 2 to 3 things a year. And at the beginning, I was completing things a lot faster. Also, you need to do different genres. So it is so tempting to do the thing that you love first. But unfortunately, you're not good enough to make your magnum opus. You're probably not even good enough to write something in the genre that you end up wanting to write in, because if you try that, you're going to freak out. You're going to be like, this isn't as good as Terry Brooks or Ursula Le Guin or Dean Koontz or whoever, Steven Spielberg. So at the beginning, like, write some horror, write some fantasy, write some science fiction, write some mystery, write some romantic comedy, write some like super raunchy, like romance stuff. Like, write things that are not a thing that you generally would write, because it's a lot easier to distance yourself from a genre you only tangentially like than to write something that you really, really, really love. Because if you write something and you love Robert Jordan and you write a big Wheel of Time kind of fantasy thing first, you're always going to see the defects of it. But if you write like a cozy murder mystery or something that is not a thing that you love, you'll find it a lot easier to put that aside and then write the next thing. Because you're like, well, I'm not a romance writer, so whatever, I'm putting that aside. You do eventually have to write in the genre that you want. And if you can understand that you suck and write in the genre and not get too hung up in the fact that your book will literally never be good, your first book will never be good enough to publish. It just won't. It just won't stop. Stop trying. Just write something that can publish. And the reason is because most people want to write a big epic book that speaks to the speaks to what it means to be a human. And just if you keep writing that book over and over and over again, you're never going to learn how to actually write that book, because it is in finishing things that we learn and that we codify what we learned from that. My first book was a middle grade mystery novel called Gumshoes: The Case of Madison's Father. It was very cute, but I wanted to make sure I wrote something with a very simple structure and that like sentence structure that I could do in 30 to 40,000 words and be complete. My next novel was called My Father Didn't Kill Himself. It was about it was told all in blog posts. It was another mystery novel. And it was only after doing those two books in ways that were different than that I knew how to write a blog post. So I just wrote a bunch of blog posts. I knew structure, so I could write a book that was very simplistic but had a good structure. My first Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter. You want to know why he flips around between monsters, humans, and it's all in his head the whole time? I'll tell you. It's because I wasn't a good enough writer to write a complete story. So I needed the crutch of being able to flip back. It was all just like that was my base level was I did not know how to write a complete 4-issue story from beginning to end, but I did know how to flip back and forth between reality and the past and the future and different and like screw with people's minds, because you can do that a whole lot more readily than you can tell a full story that runs from beginning to end. And so all of these were just taking where I was in my career, how good I was as a writer, and utilizing it to the best of my ability. And that is probably the last and the most important thing, is find where you are as a writer now and write the best thing you can using those gifts that you have. It may be like, I love psychological horror and like things that mess with your mind. So I'd watch In the Mouth of Madness and Jacob's Ladder and Event Horizon. All of those things were freaking like crack to me. And so I knew how to, I knew how to like mess with people's minds in that way. So, and I knew how to make a comic. I took and then I hired an artist who was very good at that kind of style, and we made it as best as we could. The mystery novel told in blog posts. I'd been writing blog posts for 8 years before I did that book. I knew how to write a blog post and I knew structure. So I took those things and I made a book. I knew structure from doing my novel, from doing my scripts, and so I just took that and I made a middle grade novel, which a very simple structure and novel structure, because that was the best thing that I could make great at that time. So it's not about making the best thing; it's about making the thing that is best in that time frame, which you can execute flawlessly. But it's going to take time. That's why I said suck. Because it's going to take time to even get good enough to do anything good. But once you can do something good, that is when you can start playing with all of these things. And I could keep going on and on. In fact, I did in my book, which has many more tips on this.
Well, that's actually a really good segue to finish this up. So, as you've even said then, clearly we've got some free advice from you throughout this episode and taken tips from you. You have mentioned that you've got various books and courses out there for people to learn further with these subjects. So, could you begin with telling us where they can find these books and these courses, and then also plug your other stuff and your social medias?
Sure. So the easiest way to find my books is at russellnohelty.com. But I created a website called The Complete Creative, which is all about how to build a better business, how to make better stuff, how to sell stuff, how to market it, how to create better. It's based upon the first book that I did, How to Build a Creative Career. And it's all the stuff that I've learned since then. And that's the hub for all of my writing. Now, that stuff's great, but I'm here to talk about my Kickstarter, which is the most important thing for me right now in this moment. Is we're doing a Kickstarter for a book called Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter. We are trying to reprint the first volume, which went out of print earlier this year, and print a never-before-seen 5th issue. So if you like Lovecraft, Giant of the Homicidal Maniac, dark fantasy, psychological mind screws, then Ichabod is the book for you. It's like Lord of the Rings if Lovecraft wrote it with a sense of humor. I wish Lovecraft had a sense of humor. He didn't, unfortunately. So I have a sense of humor. So I've injected all of those things and all of the things I love. People have said that it's as close to Giant of the Homicidal Maniac as you can get in that sort of psychotic-y, but funny, I shouldn't be laughing at this tone. We're running it. It runs until October 3rd. If we can we're trying to raise a big number, $15,666. If we can do that, then Ichabod will continue for as long as I can keep making them. But this is a test. If you like that kind of stuff, then you've got to come, get on the train, and help me make this thing and restart it. It's a book that has not been in production since 2012 and has not had a new thing released in it since 2014. So it's a lot to get this engine back up and running. I have committed to doing issue 5, 6, 7, and 8. Any more than that is based on how this Kickstarter goes. And if we can, and on top of that, I've got 24 issues total in this, and potentially 50 more on top of that. But Ichabod, if I can get this Kickstarter funded, then I can continue right on to the 3rd volume with no break in production. But if it doesn't fund, then we're going to have to have some words with the artist. So I recommend you going to russellnohelty.com/Ichabod Kickstarter. The book's about or just look up Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter on Kickstarter. It's about a psychopath that escapes a mental asylum and becomes a monster hunter, but doesn't know if he's killing monsters, humans, or it's all in his head the whole time. The best thing about Ichabod being out this long is you can very readily look it up and read reviews. It's very well reviewed, and it's very much beloved. Probably some of your friends, if you like horror or dark fantasy comics, have read it, especially if they're Kickstarter fanatics. So it's got tons of reviews on Amazon and on Goodreads, and we want to continue this book. It's coming back only because fans have said how much they love it. And so this is our big grand experiment. We're doing a book, our 2nd volume of Cthulhu is Hard to Spell. And we want this to be the other, and that's going to be one of the anchors in our year. And we love Ichabod to be the other anchor in that year. But it's really up to you. If you go to the page, you can get the 1st issue free and a preview of the 5th issue, so you can see if it's your jam. But at least go to the Kickstarter page and download the 1st issue, because then you'll see if you like it. I'll send you, once you sign up, I send you a couple of emails about what Ichabod's about. And then you can see if you grok the same stuff as me, because that's what this is about. Really, the reason I do all of this is because somehow I have found a bunch of people that grok the same stuff as me. And so I'm going to keep making stuff for them as long as they want me to make it for them.
So there you have it, folks. Get that engine running for this train. Keep it going. Russell is a man of his word. I've found that out many times before. So when he says that this train could keep going past what he has planned and like into the future, I believe it. But obviously, like he said, it comes down to the fans. So please make sure that you check out the Kickstarter back that as well. Well, thank you very much for joining us this episode, Russell. It has been very insightful and informative, and I've definitely seen it as a big eye-opener. Is there any last words that you have, Brenton?
Not really, man. I just want to say thanks for being on, Russell. This has been one of the more in-depth episodes we've done in quite a while, and I think that all the advice you've given, and I was looking at your website, the Complete Creative, and I think that is an incredible piece of knowledge that you've been open and kindly shared with the world. So thanks for helping other creatives be creative, essentially.
You're welcome. I actually do, for the rest of this year at least, I do my income report. So you can actually go through and see every dollar that I have made this year and every dollar I will make until at least December. I've not decided if I'm going to continue it in 2020. But not only do I give as much knowledge away as possible, I try to show you like exactly where that money comes from.
Right on. All right, guys. Well, I think it's safe to say that Russell is a certified Radult. Again, thank you very much for joining us this episode.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that brings to an end another episode of the Radults podcast. We hope you've enjoyed your time with us today and that you've left the episode feeling even more inspired to turn your own creative dreams into reality. As always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow, and share our content. And go out there and live life a little more Radult. Have a rad day.